Hello, my name is Christina Stone Kaiser. I am cooking today from the Forks Over Knives Flavor Cookbook, and today we are making what's it called? A Stewpea Jamaican mixed vegetable and dumpling soup. So let me give you a quick picture of it there. And I have to say, earlier this morning I was like, oh, okay, I'm making a brown bean soup. And then I remembered, there's dumplings! Everything is better with dumplings. So we have a start going over here. I have 2 pots. We started with our basic base. Our basic base is onion, garlic, and ginger sauteing. So we're doing a steam saute, meaning a little bit of water in the bottom of the pot. And that just until your onions are translucent. Then we dumped in for a single batch 1 tomato, 2 diced carrots, 2 teaspoons of thyme, 3/4 teaspoon of allspice, a little bit of cayenne pepper, 3/4 teaspoon of salt, 4 cups of water. Then it's a lot of beans. It's a large can of pinto and a small can of red bean. So that's a lot going on right there. And those, after it was translucent, all that got dumped in. We brought this up to a boil, and now this is on a low simmer for 10 minutes. While that was happening, I went ahead and started my dumpling mixture and got my plant milk ready. So my plant milk, you will recall Dr. Grieger has a way to do this. 1 cup of water to a tablespoon of nut butter. And so I needed 1.5 cups for both. This is a very simple dumpling. It's a 1/4 cup of flour to 2 tablespoons of water. And it's very thick. So when you are making something like this, if you haven't made it before, you're going to be tempted to think it's not right. But it is. So don't worry. Now this one is double that. And then it's dropping by a 1/4 teaspoon into the pot. So if you've never done this before, the whole thing is a bit unnerving. It can feel like, how is this going to work? How's it going to stick together? So your flour is going to expand. These don't have to be pretty. I'm sure you could make them pretty, but you don't have to feel an obligation to make them pretty. Some of it will come apart and will just thicken the broth of the soup a little bit. And then a majority of it will also stay together. So I'm sort of dropping them in different places so as to give it a little bit of a chance to cook. So what happens is the flour cooks to form a bit of a dumpling as that liquid is boiling. And if you dump them all in the same place, you'll have a more difficult time. I'm working with 1 hand instead of 2 because I managed to cut 3 of my fingers while cutting carrots. So I don't want to use my other hand because I don't want to change my Band-Aids. So I'm just dumping in various places, and you can do all sorts of things with dumplings. I mentioned this is a simple dumpling recipe. You can add scallion, you can add salt, you can add pepper, you can add broth instead of water. This is very simple. So we are going to really be relying on the broth of the soup to flavor the dumpling in a lot of ways. But how great, instead of having to have a cracker, right, you've got the bread already in your soup. It was a really old school way of doing things. It was a cheap way of doing things, right? Just a little bit of flour and your whole family could eat. So if you came from a big family, as most families used to be, this ability to cook quickly like this, such a big deal. I have everything in 1 pot. I am a huge fan of cooking everything in 1 pot because it's just less dishes. And then serving at the end of the day, everything in 1 bowl, so great for me. So what happens here is once these dumplings are all in, you're looking to boil for 20 minutes. So you really are cooking that flour. And so you kind of want to think about that. If you're like, oh, I'll almost be done at the dumplings. Technically speaking, you will almost be done. You can go off, you can do dishes, you can do work, anything else, but that dumpling needs to keep cooking. So there's the one, and this one is a little bit less dumpling, so I'm going to do this one second. But it's the same idea once you scoot over to the next pot. And again, for me, this just makes life so exciting. And so what's gonna happen when all of this is done? So these will boil up, and right before you would serve, you're gonna throw in some scallion and some lime juice. And that lime juice is gonna brighten the flavor. So in fact, it's a tablespoon of lime juice to 2 scallions. And that is a really important finishing step. A lot of people, you know, it adds ingredients to the back end of your recipe, but the upside is you get this brightener to your soup. And then the scallion, so you know, you don't want to put it in while it's cooking, because what'll happen if you put it in while it's cooking is your scallion's going to lose its vibrant flavor as well. It's not going to have that little crunch to it. And you don't have anything in here. This is a boiled soup. So you don't have any way to get texture if you don't leave that to the last. So be patient if you are like me and not so patient. So that is the end of that portion. I'm actually going to come over here quick and do a little rinse and let those start to boil a little bit. But I wanted to make sure to show you that because I didn't grow up in a house. My great-grandmother used to make dumplings a lot. My mom didn't do a lot with dumplings. So I saw it as a kid, but I didn't see it the way my grandmother would have seen it. And perhaps, you know, who knows? Maybe my mom just didn't like dumplings or something like that. Or maybe she, you know, like me, when you first put the flour together, you think, is this right? I'm not sure. Because it really seems thick. And it seems like, oh my gosh, I better add a little more water. This isn't going to work. But what happens is, with flour, that water keeps working itself through the dough. So don't get too scared that your dough is thick or that it still feels crumbly after a couple turns in the pan. All that is very normal. So if we come back over and we just take a quick look, you'll see those 1/4 teaspoon, they're expanding a little bit and they're getting a nice cook on them, which is great. And it's really going to enhance. The other thing is, because your beans are this dark color, as is the tomato and the carrot, that little bit of green scallion on top is going to make a ton of difference in terms of the vibrancy in your bowl. And if you really wanted to make this like kind of a whole plant feel to it even more, you might want to toss in a little bit of kale or spinach, just enough to wilt it. So always a little bit of leafy green can be good for you in all of this. But that's really the extent of what ends up happening. But just to kind of reiterate, once that's in there, you want it to cook for about 20 minutes so that those dumplings will like get a little bigger, which we can kind of see in the picture there. And you can also see going in this pot here, because this one's been going a little longer. So they just puff up a wee bit. Let me pull one out for you. They just puff up a wee bit is how that ends up working. And you can see they're not stuck together, which would have been a fear, but moving them around as you stick them in the pot is going to be a big help to that. And then again, that flour is going to thicken that stew a bit as well. So then at the end, when you're ready to serve, it's just a tablespoon of lime juice, sprinkle with scallion. Even the notion of like 2 scallions, it's not like a rule. It's more like, how much am I going to need for each bowl that I'm serving? And you're going to sprinkle some scallion over that. So that is the Jamaican dumpling and bean stew. Enjoy it. I can't wait to try it, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.